The moment Maya enters the courtroom with Jordan in her arms, the boy extends his little hand toward Ethan. The cameras capture the CEO's expression changing from absolute ruin to the rawest vulnerability when he recognizes the color of his own eyes in his lost son. But before we dive into the full story, let me know where you're watching from and what time it is. Now subscribe to the channel, and let's get started. The sound of breakfast being prepared was the morning rhythm that lulled the penthouse apartment in Manhattan. Sophia Martinez, 28, an associate at the prestigious Blackwell & Stern law firm, watched the city awaken through the expansive windows while her stomach twisted, not from hunger, but from anxiety. The positive pregnancy test, hidden in her Prada work bag, weighed like lead. Alexander Reed, 38, Chief Financial Officer of Reed Enterprises, one of America's largest technology corporations, entered the kitchen impeccably dressed in his custom-tailored Armani suit. With his tall frame and graying temples, he exuded the confidence of someone born to command. "We need to talk," Sophia finally said, her hands trembling slightly around the teacup that had replaced her usual espresso. "Can it wait until tonight? I have a meeting with Japanese investors in 20 minutes, he replied distractedly, checking emails on his latest model smartphone. "It's important, Alex. I'm pregnant." The silence that followed was as dense as concrete. Alexander finally looked up from his phone, his expression transitioning from surprise to cold calculation in a matter of seconds. "That's unexpected," he said mechanically, placing his phone on the marble countertop. "Are you sure?" 3 tests and a doctor's appointment yesterday, 8 weeks. What happened in the next 2 hours would be etched in Sophia's memory as the moment her world collapsed. Alexander didn't yell, didn't show anger, which might have been easier to bear. Instead, with the same coldness with which he conducted multi-million-dollar negotiations, he explained why a child simply didn't fit into his current life plan. "Let's be realistic, Sophia. Our relationship works because it's simple, convenient. A child would change all that." He spoke as if discussing the acquisition of a problematic company. "Besides, you're still building your career. A child now would be a professional disaster for you. We've been together for almost 2 years, Alex. I thought we were building something." "Building something?" He laughed, a sound that cut Sophia more deeply than any shout. "Sophia, you're intelligent, beautiful, and fun to be around. But let's be frank, you don't have the profile to be someone's wife in my position." "What exactly does that mean?" Sophia asked, her voice breaking as reality began to crystallize. "It means you're a first-generation lawyer, daughter of Mexican immigrants. It means that, although you graduated from Yale, you still carry that subtle accent of someone who grew up in Queens. It means my family expects certain standards that, frankly, you would never meet." Sophia felt as if each word was a brick piled on her chest, making it difficult to breathe. Alexander continued, now occasionally consulting his watch. "I have some discreet connections who can help with the situation. I can arrange everything, pay for the procedure, give you time to recover. I'll transfer sufficient funds to ensure your comfort over the coming months." "You're offering me money to abort our child?" The words came out in an incredulous whisper. "I'm offering a practical solution to a problem neither of us needs, Sophia. Be realistic. You can barely manage your time with the firm's demands. How would you raise a child alone? Because let me be absolutely clear, there will be no our child. There will either be a sensible decision or there will be your child, with me out of the picture." When Sophia refused to accept his practical solution, Alexander's mask of civility began to crack. 2 hours later, she found herself in the building's lobby, carrying only 2 hastily packed suitcases and her document case. The doorman, who always greeted her with a smile, now avoided her gaze, clearly instructed not to allow her entry again without authorization. "I'm sorry, Miss Martinez. Mr. Reed's orders," he mumbled when Sophia tried to return for the rest of her belongings. Alexander had changed the digital locks on the apartment before even leaving for his meeting. The last message on her phone was cold and businesslike. "I've transferred $50,000 to your account as assistance during this transition. Please do not contact me again." The following weeks were a blur of humiliation and despair. Sophia discovered that her discreet relationship with Alexander was well known at the firm, and rumors about her inappropriate behavior began to circulate. Without clear explanations, she was transferred to less important cases, removed from high-profile clients. On a rainy Friday, just 3 months after that fateful morning, she was called to the senior partner's office, where she was informed that, "Unfortunately, your recent performance has not met the firm's exceptional standards." The unspoken truth hung in the air. Alexander Reed was too valuable a client to displease, and Sophia Martinez was perfectly dispensable. 16 weeks pregnant, unemployed, and with her professional reputation tarnished by cruel rumors, Sophia rented a small apartment in the Bronx and began selling her luxury items to ensure a financial reserve. She refused to touch the money Alexander had transferred. The amount remained untouched in a separate account, a constant reminder of how he had tried to buy her silence and disappearance. To survive, she accepted temporary jobs as a legal consultant for small businesses and as a legal document reviewer, jobs she could do remotely, hiding her growing belly from the gaze of potential employers. At night, when loneliness threatened to consume her, Sophia studied business and technology law tirelessly, absorbing knowledge she never would have had time to acquire in her former hectic routine at the firm. It was during one of these temporary jobs, reviewing contracts for a small technology startup, that Sophia identified a legal loophole that would save the company from a hostile takeover. The CEO, impressed, not only paid double her fee but offered a permanent consulting position. 6 months after the birth of her daughter Isabella, Sophia found her true calling, specializing in protecting innovative startups from corporate predators like Alexander. Working from home while the baby slept, building her network of contacts in the few free moments, she began to gain a reputation among early-stage entrepreneurs as the lawyer who really cares. On a particularly difficult night, when Isabella was just over a year old and a persistent fever kept them both awake, Sophia made a silent promise as she rocked her daughter in the small one-bedroom apartment. "One day, Isabella, I'll build something so big and important that Alexander Reed will beg to be part of it. And when that day comes, I'll look him in the eye and tell him exactly what he told me. You're simply not enough." As tears fell on her phone, Sophia couldn't imagine that 15 years later she would be back in that same building, not as a visitor but as the owner, with an empire larger than Alexander Reed's. The harsh fluorescent lights of the rental office flickered as Sophia signed her name on the lease agreement for the small apartment in the Bronx. Her hand trembled slightly, the designer pen, a gift from Alexander on their first anniversary, feeling suddenly heavy and out of place. The leasing agent, a middle-aged woman with tired eyes, glanced at Sophia's Burberry coat and Louboutin heels with thinly veiled curiosity. "First month, last month, and security deposit," the woman said, sliding the keys across the desk. "Apartment 3B. Elevators broken more often than not, so prepare for stairs." Sophia nodded, calculating how many more designer items she would need to sell to stretch her dwindling savings. The $50,000 from Alexander remained untouched in a separate account, blood money she refused to acknowledge. The contrast between her new living situation and the Manhattan penthouse couldn't have been more stark. The apartment smelled of old cigarettes and discount cleaning products. A water stain spread across the ceiling like a tea spill, and the linoleum in the kitchen curled at the edges. This was what $2,200 a month bought in New York City when you weren't living in a corporate executive's penthouse. 2 days later, Sophia returned to Blackwell & Stern, head held high despite the whispers that followed her through the corridors. As she passed the break room, conversation abruptly ceased, only to resume in hushed tones once she was out of earshot. "She slept with Reed to get the Goldstein case," she overheard one associate mutter to another. "Classic partner track shortcut." Sophia's cheeks burned, but she kept walking, files clutched tightly against her chest. She had earned the Goldstein case through 80-hour work weeks and brilliant legal strategy, not through her relationship with Alexander. But perception had already become reality. Eleanor Fisher, head of the corporate litigation department, called Sophia into her office that afternoon. The large windows showcased the Manhattan skyline, a view Sophia had once hoped would someday be hers. "Sophia, we need to discuss your caseload," Eleanor began, not quite meeting Sophia's eyes. "The partnership feels it might be best to transfer you to some less complex matters for the time being." "May I ask why?" Sophia's voice remained steady despite the knot forming in her stomach. "The Goldstein merger is entering a critical phase, and I've been handling the due diligence for months." Eleanor shuffled papers on her desk. "For your own good, really, given your personal situation. The firm feels you might benefit from a reduced workload." The subtext was clear. Your relationship with a major client has imploded, and now you're a liability. Over the next weeks, Sophia watched as her carefully built career crumbled. Cases were reassigned. Client meetings no longer included her. Partners who once sought her input now barely acknowledged her presence. Still, she arrived early, stayed late, and produced impeccable work, hoping her performance would overcome the whispers. Meanwhile, her pregnancy progressed. At 16 weeks, her fitted suits no longer concealed her changing body. She began wearing looser clothing, drawing more whispers and speculative glances. On a particularly rainy Friday afternoon, Sophia was summoned to managing partner Jonathan Blackwell's office. His assistant's sympathetic look told her everything before she even stepped through the door. "Sophia, please, sit down." Blackwell gestured to a chair. At 65, he had the weathered look of a man who had seen everything in his 40 years of corporate law. "I'll be direct. We've been monitoring your work product, and unfortunately, your recent performance has not met the firm's exceptional standards." The practiced words washed over her. They both knew this had nothing to do with her performance. "Alexander Reed called you," Sophia stated flatly. Blackwell's momentary discomfort confirmed her suspicion. "This isn't about any individual client. It's about maintaining the reputation and standards of Blackwell and Stern." As Sophia cleaned out her desk under the curious gazes of colleagues, Miranda, a junior associate, approached cautiously. "This is bullshit," she whispered. "Everyone knows you're the best associate in the department." "Thanks, Miranda. Reed is a platinum client. You never had a chance once things went south," Miranda added, helping Sophia pack her legal references. "They billed over $2 million in fees last fiscal year." Sophia nodded, the final piece clicking into place. She was collateral damage in a business decision. Nothing personal, just business. Alexander's world operated on that principle. The following weekend, Sophia hung her designer suits in the small closet of her Bronx apartment, the musty smell of mildew greeting her. She ran her hand across a Chanel jacket, remembering Alexander's approving smile when she'd worn it to a corporate gala. "You look like you belong," he had said, unintentionally revealing how he truly saw her, an outsider trying to fit in. Monday morning found her at a recruiting agency specializing in legal placements. The recruiter, a polished woman with an eager smile, reviewed Sophia's impressive resume with growing enthusiasm until Sophia mentioned her pregnancy. "Oh," the recruiter's smile dimmed. "That does complicate things. Most firms are looking for someone available for frequent travel and overtime." "I'm willing to work overtime. I've practically lived at my desk for years." "Of course, but with a baby." The recruiter trailed off, then brightened artificially. "Let's focus on part-time opportunities or remote work for now. Perhaps after your situation resolves." By the third recruiting agency with the same response, Sophia understood her new reality. 16 weeks pregnant, unemployed, and increasingly seen as radioactive in the legal community of Manhattan. Alexander's influence reached further than she had anticipated. That evening, Sophia took her Prada handbag, the first luxury item she had ever purchased with her own money after winning her first major case, to a high-end consignment store in Brooklyn. "This retails for over $2,000, she told the boutique owner, trying to keep the desperation from her voice. "It's in perfect condition." The woman examined the bag with expert hands. "I can offer you $800 cash today. Best I can do." Sophia swallowed her pride. "I'll take it." Over the next few weeks, most of her designer wardrobe and accessories followed the same path. Each sale felt like shedding another piece of the life Alexander had crafted for her, a life that had never truly been hers. With her rapidly diminishing funds, Sophia purchased a refurbished laptop and began searching for remote legal work. She found her first contract job reviewing standard lease agreements for a property management company, mindless work that paid a fraction of her former salary but could be done from her small kitchen table. At 2 a.m, the blue light of her laptop illuminated Sophia's exhausted face as she reviewed her 50th lease agreement of the day. Her back ached, her eyes burned, and the baby kicked restlessly. She placed a hand on her swollen belly. "We'll be okay," she whispered, trying to convince herself as much as her unborn child. During the day, while waiting for document review assignments, Sophia immersed herself in technology law textbooks borrowed from the public library. If conventional law firms wouldn't hire her, she would create a new path. Each page was meticulously annotated, each concept analyzed and connected to potential applications. "Your baby is perfectly healthy, Ms. Martinez," Dr. Chen said during Sophia's 20-week checkup. "Would you like to know the sex?" Sophia hesitated, then nodded. "It's a girl," the doctor smiled, adjusting the ultrasound monitor. Tears spilled down Sophia's cheeks. Joy mingled with terror. A daughter. A little girl who would look to her for everything. How could she provide the life her daughter deserved? That night, Sophia reviewed her bank accounts. The regular account showed an increasingly alarming balance. The separate account with Alexander's $50,000 remained untouched, a temptation she refused to succumb to. Instead, she opened a new document on her laptop and titled it, "5-Year Plan." She wrote meticulously, "Financial independence through specialized legal consulting, expertise in technology and startup law, provide my daughter with stability, education, and dignity, build a reputation independent of Blackwell and Stern, create a network of clients who value substance over pedigree." As weeks turned into months, Sophia established a routine. Mornings were spent on remote legal work, document reviews, basic contract drafting, anything that paid. Afternoons were dedicated to studying emerging areas of technology law. Evenings were spent reaching out to small startups through professional networking sites, offering discounted legal advice. During a particularly difficult night, as her now 36-week pregnancy made sleep nearly impossible, Sophia paced her small apartment. The baby had been kicking relentlessly for hours. Outside, the Bronx traffic created a constant background hum, so different from the muffled silence of the soundproofed Manhattan penthouse. She rested her hand on her rounded belly, feeling her daughter's movements. "One day my baby girl will be so successful that Alexander Reed will have to wait in line to speak to us," she whispered into the darkness, not knowing that this promise would become reality in ways she couldn't even imagine. The pale light of dawn was filtering through the blinds as Sophia's tired eyes scanned the dense legal document for the third time. It was 3 a.m, and Isabella, now 4 months old, had finally fallen asleep in the second-hand bassinet beside Sophia's makeshift desk, a folding table wedged between the refrigerator and wall in their small Bronx apartment. "There it is," Sophia whispered, circling a clause with a red pen. Her finger traced the convoluted language that concealed a predatory takeover mechanism. The startup that had hired her to review their investor agreement was about to sign away controlling interest without realizing it. She quickly drafted an email to the founder, attaching her detailed analysis. Sleep could wait. This small company's future couldn't. 3 hours later, her phone rang, waking both her and Isabella. As she soothed her crying daughter with one arm, she answered with the other. "Ms. Martinez, this is Eric Chen from Nexus Dynamics." The voice on the other end sounded breathless. "I got your email. You literally saved our company. That venture capital firm gave us 48 hours to sign, claiming it was standard language." Sophia shifted Isabella to her shoulder, patting her back gently. "It's a common tactic, Mr. Chen. They were hoping you wouldn't have time for proper legal review." "We didn't even see it," he admitted. "Our regular counsel glossed right over it. Large firms often miss these details with early-stage companies. They're used to standard agreements." A pause. "Would you be available for a video call this afternoon? Our team would like to discuss something with you." The video call that followed would change the trajectory of Sophia's life. Eric's face filled her laptop screen, flanked by his two co-founders. Isabella lay sleeping in her lap, occasionally making tiny noises that Sophia tried to mute by adjusting her microphone. "We want you as our permanent legal consultant," Eric stated without preamble. "Name your price." Sophia glanced down at Isabella, then back at the screen. "I should mention that I'm a single mother working from home. My availability might be unpredictable." The three founders exchanged glances. "Ms. Martinez, you found something in 3 hours that our previous counsel missed in 3 weeks. We're a startup. We understand unpredictable. We need someone who sees what others miss." That night, with a retainer agreement signed and her first substantial income since leaving Blackwell and Stern secured, Sophia allowed herself a moment of cautious optimism. 5 months passed in a blur of late nights, document reviews, and the constant juggle of motherhood and work. Sophia's apartment had transformed into a hybrid nursery office, with legal textbooks stacked beside parenting guides and a portable crib next to her desk. Then came the moment that would define Sophia's future path. She was nursing Isabella while watching the business news, a habit she maintained to stay current with market trends, when a story caught her attention. Breaking news in the tech sector: innovative medical device startup Medicor has been acquired by healthcare giant Wellstone Industries for an undisclosed sum. Sources close to the deal suggest the founders received only a fraction of the company's valuation, losing control of their groundbreaking technology. Sophia's attention sharpened. She recognized this pattern. It was the same predatory acquisition strategy she had helped Nexus Dynamics avoid. Her mind raced with possibilities. How many other small companies were falling victim to these tactics? How many brilliant innovators were losing their life's work because they couldn't afford sophisticated legal protection? The next morning, with Isabella secured in her bouncer, Sophia created a simple website: Martinez Legal Solutions, protecting innovators from corporate predators. She crafted service packages specifically for early-stage startups, pricing them at points accessible to companies with limited funding. Within weeks, her phone was ringing with inquiries. Word spread quickly in startup circles about the former Blackwell and Stern associate who now specialized in protecting the little guy. Sophia worked during Isabella's naps, after bedtime, and in the early morning hours, gradually building a client base of passionate entrepreneurs. 6 months after Isabella's birth, Sophia found herself sitting across from 3 young programmers in a bustling Brooklyn coffee shop. Isabella was secured in her stroller, happily playing with colorful blocks while Sophia reviewed the term sheet the nervous founders had placed before her. "Big tech wants your algorithm, but they've offered you peanuts," Sophia summarized, looking up from the papers. The 3 20-somethings nodded in unison, their expressions a mixture of pride and fear. "They said it's a generous offer for pre-revenue technology," said Michael, the lead developer. Sophia shook her head. "This isn't generous. It's predatory. This clause here, you'd be giving them ownership of not just this algorithm but anything related you develop for the next 5 years. And this non-compete would essentially prevent you from working in your field of expertise if things go south." She spent the next hour meticulously explaining each problematic clause, watching their expressions shift from confusion to outrage. Isabella occasionally babbled or dropped a block, which Sophia retrieved without breaking her analysis. "What can we do?" asked Lena, the only woman in the founding team. "They're saying it's this deal or nothing, and we're almost out of runway." Sophia pulled out her notebook and began drafting alternative language. "You've created something revolutionary. Don't give it away for a quick exit. Here's what we'll counter with." As Isabella stacked blocks beside her, Sophia hand-wrote a term sheet that would ensure the founders maintained control of their technology while still making the deal attractive enough for the acquiring company. 2 days later, Sophia found herself on a video call with a wall of corporate attorneys representing the technology giant. She sat at her kitchen table, projecting a calm authority that betrayed none of the chaos of the morning. Isabella's fever, a plumbing issue in the apartment, and a spilled cup of coffee on her only clean blouse. "My clients will maintain 51% controlling interest or there's no deal," she stated firmly, looking directly into the camera. "The algorithm has applications far beyond what your company has identified, and my clients aren't willing to sign away their future innovations." The lead counsel smirked. "With all due respect, Ms. Martinez, your clients have no leverage here. They need our resources to bring this to market." "With all due respect," Sophia countered, "my clients have already received interest from 3 other potential partners. A strategic bluff, but delivered with unwavering confidence. Perhaps I should connect with legal counsel at those companies instead?" As the negotiation progressed, Sophia noticed the logo on one attorney's coffee mug, Reed Enterprises. Of course, the technology giant was one of Alexander's key strategic partners. A flash of determination surged through her. Winning this deal became even more personal. 3 hours later, the call ended with the corporate attorneys agreeing to revise the terms. The young programmers had won the right to maintain controlling interest in their technology, with a more favorable royalty structure and significantly higher compensation. When the final agreement was signed a week later, the founding team met Sophia at the same Brooklyn cafe to celebrate. Isabella slept peacefully in her stroller while they toasted with coffee instead of champagne. "You saved us," Michael said earnestly, raising his cup. "We wouldn't have known how to fight back without you." Sophia smiled, glancing at her sleeping daughter. "I'm learning that sometimes the most important battles are the ones fought for others." As the programmers left, promising to refer other startups to her services, Sophia felt something she hadn't experienced since before Alexander's rejection: purpose. Each small company she helped was a step toward building something meaningful from the ashes of her previous life. That night, as she reviewed another contract while Isabella slept, Sophia allowed herself to dream bigger than mere survival. Perhaps there was a way to systematize what she was doing, to help more innovators stand against corporate giants. The seed of an idea began to form, one that would eventually grow into something far more powerful than she could yet imagine. "You saved us," one of the programmers had said at their goodbye. He couldn't know that in many ways, they had saved her too, giving her not just income, but a mission that would eventually transform the landscape of corporate power itself. "Vocês me salvaram", disse dos programadores ao se despedir, sem imaginar que em 10 anos sua tecnologia seria parte do império de Sophia que revolucionaria o acesso à justiça e colocaria Alexander Reed de joelhos. The seed of purpose planted by helping those young programmers had taken root and grown within Sophia. 3 years had passed in a whirlwind of small victories and gradual progress. Isabella, now a precocious 2.5-year-old with curious eyes and an ever-present stream of questions, sat cross-legged on the living room carpet of their modest Bronx apartment, meticulously stacking colored blocks into increasingly complex structures. "Look, Mama! A castle!" she exclaimed, carefully placing the final red block atop her creation. "That's beautiful, mija," Sophia replied, glancing up from her laptop where she was reviewing the latest iteration of her business plan. The document represented months of research, countless late nights, and a vision that had evolved from mere survival to something far more ambitious. Today marked a pivotal moment. In 30 minutes, 2 recent MIT graduates would arrive at her apartment, brilliant programmers she had spent weeks courting with nothing but her conviction and the promise of creating something revolutionary. The doorbell rang precisely at 4 o'clock. Sophia straightened her blazer, a consignment store find but still carrying the quiet authority of its Banana Republic origins, and opened the door. "Raj, Emma, thank you for coming," she greeted, ushering in the young programmers. Their eyes darted curiously around the apartment, taking in the hybrid living space that functioned as both home and office. Isabella looked up from her blocks, studying the newcomers with undisguised interest. "This is my daughter, Isabella," Sophia introduced. "Isabella, say hello to Mama's colleagues." "Hello," Isabella said with the careful enunciation of a child determined to be taken seriously. "Are you building something too?" Emma smiled, crouching down. "Your mom thinks we might build something amazing together." Once settled at the small dining table doubling as a conference space, Sophia opened her presentation. Imagine a system that could scan 100-page contracts in seconds and identify legal traps that would normally take hours for lawyers to find. She began, her voice carrying the quiet conviction that had become her trademark. Raj leaned forward, his expression skeptical but intrigued. "Why would we work for near nothing here instead of taking offers from Silicon Valley? I have 3 already." "Because those offers come with golden handcuffs," Sophia replied evenly. "You'll build something brilliant, but it won't be yours." She turned her laptop to show them a series of news articles. "These are all innovators who lost their creations to corporate giants. This one committed suicide after watching his life's work become a profit engine for others." Emma's eyes widened. "That's Marcus Chen. His algorithm revolutionized medical diagnostics. And he died penniless while the corporation that acquired his technology made billions," Sophia confirmed. "That's the system I'm trying to change." For the next hour, as Isabella quietly played with her blocks nearby, Sophia outlined her vision for an AI-powered legal analysis tool that could democratize access to sophisticated contract review. By the time she finished, both programmers were asking technical questions about implementation rather than questioning the premise. 2 weeks later, they began work on the prototype in Sophia's apartment, code flowing across screens while Isabella napped on the couch nearby. The initial results were disappointing. "It failed completely," Emma sighed as their algorithm struggled to analyze even a simple rental agreement. "This is going to take much longer than we thought." Sophia rubbed her eyes, exhaustion evident in the dark circles beneath them. She had fallen asleep at her keyboard the night before, waking with keyboard imprints on her cheek just in time to get Isabella ready for daycare. "Then we adjust the timeline. Good things aren't built overnight." The following month found Sophia sitting nervously in a local credit union, a thick folder of business plans and projections before her. "I understand this is a significant risk," she told the loan officer, "but I believe in this project completely. I'm mortgaging my future on this loan, but I believe it will change everything for us." The woman across the desk studied Sophia's documents carefully. "Your credit score is excellent, Ms. Martinez, and your business plan is impressively detailed, but startups have a high failure rate, especially in legal tech." "I know the statistics," Sophia replied. "I also know what happens when David has the right tools to fight Goliath." She walked out with a loan that felt simultaneously like a lifeline and a weight. That night, she stared at her reflection in the bathroom mirror, whispering, "No turning back now." As weeks turned into months, progress came in fits and starts. Sophia juggled contract legal work with overseeing the algorithm development, often working until the early hours before catching a few hours of sleep. The most difficult moments were the mornings when Isabella would cling to her leg at the babysitter's door. "Don't go, Mommy!" she wailed one particularly difficult Tuesday, her small hands gripping Sophia's pencil skirt with surprising strength. Kneeling down to eye level with her daughter, Sophia gently wiped away Isabella's tears. "Mommy is building something important for us, my love. something that will help people who need it, just like we needed help once. "But I miss you," Isabella hiccuped. "I miss you too every minute we're apart," Sophia answered truthfully. "But sometimes we have to do hard things to make life better later. I promise it will be worth it." Those words became a mantra during the challenging months that followed. When the algorithm failed for the third time, when rent was due and a client payment was delayed, when Isabella developed an ear infection that kept them both awake for 3 straight nights, Sophia repeated to herself, "It will be worth it." Finally, after nearly 8 months of development, they had a working prototype. The AI could now scan standard contracts and flag potentially problematic clauses with reasonable accuracy. It wasn't perfect, but it was promising enough to show potential investors. Sophia spent weeks preparing for her presentation to a local technology incubator, rehearsing in front of the bathroom mirror while Isabella slept. On the morning of the presentation, she dressed in her most professional outfit, a navy blue suit purchased second-hand but carefully tailored to fit her perfectly. Despite her preparation, Sophia couldn't hide the dark circles under her eyes or the slight tremor in her hands as she set up her laptop. The room contained 6 evaluators, all men, all watching her with expressions ranging from polite interest to barely concealed skepticism. "Our prototype, which we call David, can analyze complex contracts in minutes instead of hours," Sophia explained, demonstrating the system's capabilities. "It identifies predatory clauses that even experienced lawyers might miss, especially when working under time pressure." As the demonstration progressed, the evaluators' expressions shifted. Questions became more technical, more engaged. By the conclusion, the lead investor was leaning forward, calculator in hand. "We're offering $250,000 for 15% of your company," he stated after a brief discussion with his colleagues. "Your technology has significant potential, particularly for consumer protection applications." Sophia maintained her composure, but her heart raced. This was it, the first validation that her vision could become reality. 2 weeks later, Sophia stood in an empty office space in a converted industrial building in Brooklyn. The space was small, the floors scuffed, the walls in need of paint, but it was hers, the first official home of Martinez Innovation. As she watched the sign installer affix the company name to the frosted glass door, a sense of accomplishment washed over her. While interviewing potential assistants the following week, Sophia was clear about her priorities. "I need someone who doesn't mind if a 3-year-old occasionally runs through the office," she told candidates. "My daughter is part of this journey." Walking past a newsstand on her way home, a magazine cover caught Sophia's eye. Alexander Reed's confident smile beamed from the cover of Forbes under the headline, "The Family CEO: How Reed Balances Empire and Values." She picked it up, studying the image of the man who had once deemed her unworthy. He looked exactly the same, impeccably dressed, perfectly groomed, radiating the effortless confidence of the privileged. That evening, as Sophia tucked Isabella into bed, the little girl asked the question Sophia had been dreading. "Mommy, where is my daddy?" Sophia swallowed hard, carefully considering her response. How do you explain deliberate abandonment to a child? How do you tell the truth without passing on your pain? "Some families have a mommy and daddy, others just a mommy or just a daddy," she finally said, smoothing Isabella's dark curls. "Our family is perfect just like this, you and me." Isabella seemed to accept this answer, at least for now, and soon drifted to sleep. Sophia returned to the living room where the Forbes magazine lay open to Alexander's interview. As she closed it, placing it in the recycling bin, she couldn't have imagined that in just 7 years, it would be her on Forbes's cover with the headline, "The Visionary Who Transformed Access to Justice," an issue that Alexander would read with growing horror. The magazine with Alexander's face slid into the recycling bin, but his smug smile lingered in Sophia's mind. 5 years had passed since that evening when Isabella first asked about her father, and the trajectory of their lives had transformed with breathtaking speed. the Martinez Innovation headquarters now occupied an entire floor in a renovated Brooklyn warehouse. What had begun as 3 people in a cramped office had blossomed into a team of 45 dedicated employees. Through the floor-to-ceiling windows of her corner office, Sophia could see the Manhattan skyline, a daily reminder of how far she had come and how much further she intended to go. "The fourth quarter projections are complete," announced Melissa, her chief of staff, placing a tablet on Sophia's desk. "Our platform reduced legal analysis time by 87% across all client categories." Sophia scrolled through the data, a small smile playing at her lips. "Schedule a meeting with the development team. I think we can push for 90% by year-end." Her attention was diverted by a calendar notification. Isabella's mathematics competition final was in 2 hours. No matter how crucial the day's meetings, Sophia never missed her daughter's events. This balancing act had become her signature as a leader. Her unwavering commitment to both her company and her child earned her the respect of employees who saw that success needn't come at the expense of family. The boardroom of Martinez Innovation hummed with anticipation later that afternoon. Potential investors from Silicon Valley's most prestigious venture capital firm sat across from Sophia, their expressions a mixture of curiosity and carefully concealed skepticism. "Your platform's growth metrics are impressive," began Harold Winters, the lead investor, studying the projection on the wall. "But we have some concerns about scalability. Who's your CTO? Who really understands the technology here?" The subtle emphasis on "really" didn't escape Sophia's notice. She'd heard variations of this question countless times, the implicit assumption that a woman, particularly a Latina single mother, couldn't possibly grasp complex technological concepts. "I do," she replied coolly, maintaining direct eye contact. "I spent 3 years learning programming in the few hours between putting my daughter to bed and waking up to work. While my technical team handles implementation, I understand every line of code in our system." She stood, taking control of the presentation. "Let me walk you through our proprietary algorithms architecture and explain exactly how we've achieved those scalability metrics you're concerned about." For the next 30 minutes, Sophia delivered a technical breakdown so precise that Winter's skepticism gradually transformed into grudging respect. By the time she concluded, the room's energy had shifted palpably. 3 hours later, Sophia sat in an elementary school auditorium, watching 7-year-old Isabella confidently approach the microphone for the final round of the citywide mathematics competition. The contrast between this environment and the high-stakes investor meeting couldn't be more pronounced, yet Sophia felt the same fierce pride in both arenas of her life. When Isabella solved the complex problem faster than competitors 3 grades above her, Sophia found herself blinking back tears. This brilliant child, abandoned by her father as an inconvenience, was blossoming into someone extraordinary. The trophy Isabella clutched afterward seemed almost comically large in her small hands. "Ms. Martinez, could we speak privately?" Isabella's teacher, Ms. Chen, approached as the crowd dispersed. In the empty classroom, surrounded by colorful educational posters, Ms. Chen didn't mince words. "Isabella's cognitive abilities are testing off the charts. Have you considered placing her in a program for gifted children? She's mastering concepts meant for students twice her age." "We've discussed some enrichment programs," Sophia acknowledged. "This goes beyond enrichment," Ms. Chen insisted. "Isabella has extraordinary capabilities. I've taught for 15 years and never encountered a mind like hers." The conversation left Sophia with a mixture of pride and apprehension. Isabella's brilliance was becoming increasingly apparent, which meant more questions about her genetic heritage would inevitably follow. Back at the office the following day, Sophia interviewed candidates for the Director of Technology position. The company's growth necessitated experienced leadership in key departments. Richard Donovan, with his Stanford PhD and decade at Google, seemed perfect on paper. "Your platform has remarkable potential," he noted during the interview, his tone slightly condescending. "With the right technical direction, you could really optimize these algorithms." What specific optimizations would you suggest? Sophia asked pleasantly. When he outlined his approach, Sophia nodded thoughtfully before opening her laptop. That's interesting. We actually explored that path 8 months ago. She turned the screen toward him, displaying complex code. We found these inefficiencies in that approach and developed this alternative architecture instead. See the difference in processing speed? Richard's expression shifted from condescension to surprise as Sophia walked him through the technical details that she, supposedly just the business person, shouldn't have understood. I didn't realize you were so involved in the technical side, he stammered. I'm involved in every aspect of my company, she replied simply. That's non-negotiable for anyone joining our leadership team. Despite his initial misjudgment, Richard proved himself adaptable and respectful. Sophia hired him, appreciating how quickly he recognized her technical acumen. Within months, he became one of her most valued team members, never again making the mistake of underestimating her. Late one evening, Sophia remained in the office reviewing code for their next major release. This algorithm can be optimized here and here, she noted, marking sections on her tablet. Implement these changes by tomorrow. Her developer nodded, no longer surprised by her technical insights. The company culture had evolved to recognize that their CEO wasn't just a business visionary, but a technical contributor. The platform's reputation grew with each successful case. When a small medical device inventor faced a patent battle against a pharmaceutical giant, Martinez Innovation's system identified precedents and strategic approaches that helped secure a landmark victory. The case caught media attention, leading to the first major article about the company in the New York Times. Martinez Innovation, the startup democratizing access to corporate justice. Isabella, now in second grade but taking advanced classes with older students, read the article with fierce pride. "You're famous, Mommy," she declared, carefully cutting out the article for her scrapbook. That evening, as Sophia helped Isabella with homework that would challenge most middle schoolers, the girl looked up suddenly. "Mommy, the kids at school asked why I don't have a dad." The question, though anticipated, still caused Sophia's heart to clench. She had prepared for this moment, determined to shield Isabella from both the harshness of rejection and any sense of lacking. Some families have a mommy and daddy, others just a mommy or just a daddy, she explained carefully. Our family is perfect just like this, you and me. But where is he? My dad, Isabella persisted. He wasn't ready to be a father, Sophia said, choosing her words with care. That was his choice, and it says nothing about how amazing you are. Some people aren't ready for the responsibility of a family. The conversation was mercifully interrupted by a call from Sophia's CFO, announcing that their latest funding round had closed successfully, valuing the company at $100 million. 2 weeks later, Sophia sat across from executives representing one of the largest legal technology conglomerates in the world. Their offer to acquire Martinez Innovation for $150 million lay on the table between them. This is a generous offer, the lead negotiator emphasized. More than generous for a company your size. Sophia studied the documents thoughtfully. 5 years ago, this sum would have seemed unimaginable. Now it felt inadequate for what she had built. I appreciate your interest, she replied, closing the folder. But I didn't build this to sell it. I built it to transform it into something bigger. Later that night, Sophia stood before her bathroom mirror, taking a rare moment of stillness in her otherwise relentless schedule. She hardly recognized the woman looking back at her, confident, successful, powerful. Her wardrobe had evolved from second-hand finds to custom designs, her posture from the defensive curl of the wounded to the straight-backed stance of a leader. Not enough, she whispered to her reflection, echoing Alexander's cruel dismissal years ago. The memory no longer stung as it once had. Instead, it fueled her. That night, after declining the acquisition offer of $150 million, Sophia smiled at her reflection in the mirror, The same woman that Alexander Reed had considered insufficient was now worth more than he could imagine, and she was just getting started. That night, after declining the acquisition offer of $150 million, Sophia smiled at her reflection in the mirror. The same woman that Alexander Reed had considered insufficient was now worth more than he could imagine, and she was just getting started. 3 years had passed since that pivotal decision, and the Martinez Innovation Group now occupied an entire gleaming floor in the financial district, with floor-to-ceiling windows offering panoramic views of Manhattan. What had begun as a small team of 45 had expanded into a global operation with 500 employees across 3 countries. The company that investors once questioned now had them clamoring to get in. Sophia stood at the head of the conference table, surveying the faces of her executive team as they reviewed quarterly results. Her tailored Armani suit replaced the second-hand clothes of her early entrepreneurial days, but her eyes retained the same fierce determination. The David platform has officially helped its millionth client prevail against a corporate giant, announced Carlos, her chief marketing officer, his voice filled with pride. The success rate is holding steady at 82%. A chorus of approving murmurs circulated the table. What had begun as a simple contract analysis tool had evolved into a comprehensive AI legal platform that empowered individuals and small businesses to fight back against corporate overreach. They called it David, against the corporate Goliaths, and the name had become synonymous with justice in the digital age. These numbers are impressive, Sophia acknowledged, but we're approaching a crossroads. She tapped her tablet, and a global map appeared on the wall screen. It's time to expand internationally and consider taking the company public. The suggestion sent a ripple of excitement through the room, followed by thoughtful silence. Richard, now her trusted CTO, leaned forward. An IPO would give us the capital to scale globally, but it comes with significant drawbacks. Quarterly earnings pressure, noted her CFO. Shareholder expectations often conflict with social impact priorities. And substantially increased public scrutiny, added Melissa, who had risen from assistant to chief of staff. An IPO means your personal life becomes public property, Sophia. Everything. Your background, your family, Isabella. Sophia nodded, having already considered these implications. Schedule meetings with our top 3 investment banking options. I want to understand exactly what we're walking into. That evening, Sophia left the office early to attend Isabella's science competition finals. At 10 years old, Isabella had blossomed into a remarkable child with an insatiable curiosity and analytical mind that regularly left adults struggling to keep pace. The auditorium fell silent as Isabella approached the microphone, her posture confident beyond her years. My project explores algorithmic approaches to identifying patterns in climate data that traditional models miss, she began, her articulation flawless. From her seat in the 3rd row, Sophia felt her chest swell with pride. This extraordinary child had once been deemed an inconvenience by Alexander, an obstacle to his carefully planned life. Now Isabella was captivating a room full of scientists and academics with insights that could potentially reshape climate research. When Isabella was awarded the grand prize, the applause was thunderous. Watching her daughter accept the trophy, Sophia couldn't help but think about how much Alexander had lost through his callous rejection, the opportunity to know this brilliant, compassionate human being. Later that night, as they shared ice cream at their favorite local shop, Isabella grew uncharacteristically quiet. "Is everything okay, mija?" Sophia asked, noticing her daughter's furrowed brow. Isabella hesitated, pushing her spoon through the melting dessert. "Mom, why do we never talk about my father?" The question, though anticipated, still caught Sophia off guard. At 10, Isabella was too perceptive, too thoughtful to be satisfied with simplified answers any longer. Sophia took a deep breath, setting down her spoon. "Your father and I had very different visions about family and responsibility. But who is he? Does he know I exist? Did he not want to meet me?" The questions tumbled out, revealing thoughts Isabella had clearly been harboring for some time. Choosing her words carefully, Sophia reached across the table to take her daughter's hand. His name was Alexander. He knew about you before you were born, but he wasn't ready to be a father. That was his choice, and it had nothing to do with you. Is he dead? Isabella asked bluntly. No, Sophia replied. He chose a different path. That doesn't reflect on your worth, Isabella. It reflects on his limitations. Isabella absorbed this information with the same analytical approach she applied to mathematical problems. Thank you for telling me the truth, she said finally. I've always wondered. The conversation lingered in Sophia's mind the following day as she met with investment bankers about the potential IPO. While they discussed valuation metrics and market timing, one comment particularly caught her attention. We're projecting an initial valuation of $3 billion, stated the lead banker from Goldman Sachs. Your profitability combined with social impact creates a compelling narrative for investors. $3 billion. The figure was staggering, evidence of how far she'd come from that rainy day when Alexander had dismissed her from his life with a cold transfer of $50,000. As the meeting concluded, her assistant approached with a tablet. Your 4 o'clock is waiting, but I thought you might want to see this first. She handed Sophia the device, displaying a confidential market analysis report. Reed Enterprises lost 40% of market value in the past 2 years, Sophia read. Her interest immediately piqued at the familiar name. Declining innovation, leadership challenges, strategic missteps. Her eyes fixed on Alexander's name in the report. After all these years, seeing it still triggered a complex emotional response. Not pain anymore, but something more calculating. Thank you, she told her assistant. I'll be there shortly. That evening, after Isabella had gone to bed, Sophia sat in her home office researching Reed Enterprises more thoroughly. The company that had once seemed an unassailable fortress was showing significant vulnerabilities. Alexander's leadership was being questioned by industry analysts, and their products were increasingly described as dated and overpriced. Most interesting was the detailed breakdown of their divisions. Reed Enterprises' legal technology branch, ironically the very sector Sophia had revolutionized, was particularly underperforming. Their outdated approach and rigid pricing models were losing market share to more innovative competitors, primarily the Martinez Innovation Group. Sophia picked up her phone. Research team? I need a comprehensive analysis of Reed Enterprises' legal technology division. Financials, technology assessment, client retention rates, everything. Priority level 1. The following morning, Isabella sat across from Sophia at breakfast, her expression contemplative. I searched online about Reed Enterprises last night, she said suddenly. Sophia nearly choked on her coffee. You did what? After our talk about my father, you mentioned his name was Alexander, and I remembered seeing a Reed Enterprises magazine in your office once. It wasn't difficult to connect the dots. Isabella's matter-of-fact tone belied the significance of her discovery. This was the double-edged sword of raising a brilliant child. Nothing stayed hidden for long. Sophia had always intended to tell Isabella the complete truth when she was older, but apparently older had arrived sooner than expected. Alexander Reed is my biological father, isn't he? Isabella asked directly. Sophia nodded, seeing no point in denial. Yes, he was the CFO when I met him, though I believe he's CEO now. Isabella processed this information with remarkable composure. Thank you for not lying to me. I appreciate honesty, even when it's complicated. Later that day, as Sophia reviewed the preliminary research on Reed Enterprises, a plan began forming in her mind. Their vulnerable legal technology division represented not just a strategic business opportunity, but a poetic full-circle moment. The chance to acquire the very technology arm of the company owned by the man who had deemed her unworthy. I want to know everything about Reed's legal tech division, she instructed her team. Everything. While studying Alexander's company's financial reports, a plan began to form in Sophia's mind. not just to expand her own empire, but to strategically acquire the part of Alexander's company that symbolized everything he had chosen over her and Isabella. While studying Alexander's company's financial reports, a plan began to form in Sophia's mind, not just to expand her own empire, but to strategically acquire the part of Alexander's company that symbolized everything he had chosen over her and Isabella. 2 years passed with the momentum of a high-speed train. The day Sophia stood on the floor of the New York Stock Exchange, Isabella at her side, marked the culmination of a journey neither of them could have imagined in that small Bronx apartment a decade earlier. The Martinez Innovation Group's initial public offering had shattered expectations, with shares climbing 63% on the first day of trading. "Mom, they're waiting for you," Isabella whispered, her 12-year-old face alight with excitement as they prepared for the ceremonial ringing of the opening bell. Sophia squeezed her daughter's hand, taking in the moment. The girl who had once been deemed an inconvenient complication to Alexander Reed's carefully planned life now stood tall and poised, her brilliant mind already taking college-level courses. Together, they symbolized everything Alexander had rejected and everything Sophia had built despite him. The bell rang and applause erupted across the trading floor. Cameras flashed, capturing the moment for financial news networks worldwide. Sophia Martinez, once a discarded pregnant lawyer, was now the CEO of a company valued at $7 billion. "Ms. Martinez, over here!" reporters called. "How does it feel to lead one of the most successful tech IPOs of the year?" Sophia answered questions with practiced ease, her custom Carolina Herrera suit a far cry from the second-hand clothes she'd worn during her early entrepreneurial days. Isabella stood beside her, handling the attention with remarkable composure for someone so young. Back at company headquarters, champagne flowed as employees celebrated. The magazine covers arrived the next morning, Forbes featuring Sophia's confident smile beneath the headline, "The Digital Justice Warrior: How Sophia Martinez Democratized Legal Access." The irony wasn't lost on her. These were the same publications that had once featured Alexander extolling his family values. 3 months after the IPO, Sophia sat in her expanded corner office reviewing acquisition targets. The Martinez Innovation Group was cash-rich and strategically positioned to grow through targeted purchases of complementary technologies. Her eyes lingered on one particular report. "The Reed Enterprises Legal Technology Division continues to underperform," read the analysis. "Cash flow problems throughout the parent company have led to underinvestment in R&D. Sources indicate they may be seeking buyers for non-core assets to improve liquidity." A slight smile played across Sophia's lips. The plan she had been methodically developing for 18 months was approaching its culmination point. That evening, Sophia arrived home earlier than usual, finding Isabella at the dining room table surrounded by advanced calculus textbooks. Their penthouse apartment in Tribeca offered stunning views of the city through floor-to-ceiling windows, a far cry from the water-stained ceiling of their first Bronx home. "How was the Columbia seminar today?" Sophia asked, setting down her briefcase. Isabella looked up, her expression troubled. "Fine. The professor says I'm years ahead of the standard curriculum." She hesitated, then pushed her tablet across the table. "But I found something today. Or someone, I should say." Sophia's heart skipped when she saw what was on the screen, a comprehensive search result page about Alexander Reed, complete with photographs, biographical information, and news articles. "Mom, I found articles about Alexander Reed," Isabella said directly. "It's him, isn't it? My father." Sophia sat down, recognizing this pivotal moment required complete honesty. "Yes. How did you figure it out?" Isabella's analytical mind had pieced together the puzzle methodically. "I calculated approximate dates based on my age, researched technology executives in the appropriate age range from when you would have known them. Then I compared facial features." She touched the screen, highlighting her own distinctive amber eyes that matched Alexander's. The statistical probability was overwhelming. Taking a deep breath, Sophia prepared to share the complete truth she had simplified over the years. Alexander and I were together for almost 2 years. When I told him I was pregnant with you, he made it clear that a child didn't fit his life plan. He rejected us, Isabella stated plainly, her brilliant mind cutting through euphemisms. He rejected the responsibility of fatherhood, Sophia corrected gently. He offered money to… She paused, considering how to phrase it delicately. To terminate the pregnancy, Isabella finished, her directness reminiscent of Sophia's legal precision. When you refused, he abandoned you professionally and personally. Sophia nodded, surprised by her daughter's composure. Yes, I lost my job at the law firm where I worked because he was an important client. But Isabella, what happened next defined us, not his rejection. I made choices, and those choices led to everything we have now. He made his decision, and you made yours, Isabella summarized, her young face showing wisdom beyond her years. His loss. The following week, Sophia convened a confidential strategy meeting with her most trusted executives and legal team. The conference room's privacy glass was frosted, and all devices were left outside. Reed Enterprises' legal tech division is officially for sale, Sophia announced. They're describing it as a strategic partnership opportunity, but my sources confirm it's a distress sale. Reed needs capital infusion. Are we interested because it's Reed's company? Asked Richard, her CTO, who knew enough of Sophia's history to understand the personal dimension. We're interested because it's a sound business decision, Sophia replied evenly. But the execution will be handled differently than our standard acquisitions. I want all negotiations conducted through subsidiaries and intermediaries. My name shouldn't appear until the final stage. Her general counsel raised an eyebrow. May I ask why? Strategic advantage, Sophia answered simply. Reed wouldn't sell to us directly if they knew who was behind the offer. Over the next 4 months, a complex acquisition strategy unfolded. Sophia orchestrated every move with chess-master precision, using shell companies and third-party law firms to approach Reed Enterprises. The struggling company, eager for the cash infusion, failed to investigate thoroughly who was behind the generous offer for their underperforming division. They've accepted our final offer, her M&A lead announced one afternoon. $1.7 billion for their entire legal technology division. Excellent, Sophia nodded. Now for the final phase. Schedule the announcement for next month, coinciding with our annual charity gala. The gala had become a highlight of New York's social calendar, raising millions for access to justice initiatives. This year would be special, not just announcing the acquisition, but finally revealing to Alexander exactly who had purchased his company. Ensure the entire Reed executive team is invited, Sophia instructed her events director. It's standard protocol for acquisitions of this magnitude. That evening, Sophia sat with Isabella as her daughter worked on her algorithmic project for immigrant legal assistance, technology that would soon be implemented through the Martinez Innovation Platform. This system will help families like Grandma and Grandpa navigate the immigration system, Isabella explained, showing Sophia the elegant code she'd developed. Once we integrate it with the David platform, we could help thousands of families. Sophia felt a swell of pride. While Alexander had been chasing quarterly profits, they had built something with purpose, technology that embodied their values and heritage rather than hiding it. Later that night, Sophia studied herself in the full-length mirror as she tried on potential gowns for the gala. The sapphire blue Vera Wang creation caught the light magnificently, its color reminiscent of power and confidence. This one, she told her stylist, with the diamond necklace. The following morning, she reviewed the final guest list for the gala, her finger pausing over Alexander Reed's name. After 15 years, their paths would finally cross again, but this time, she would be the one with all the power. Is everything ready for the announcement? She asked her communications director. Yes. We'll reveal the acquisition, followed immediately by Isabella's Immigrant Legal Assistance Project launch. The press is already calling it the technology event of the year." Sophia nodded, satisfaction warming her chest. In less than 30 days, Alexander Reed would discover that the woman he had once considered without the right profile was now the owner of part of his empire, and this was just the beginning of her poetic justice. The night before the gala, as she adjusted the diamond necklace she would wear, Sophia reflected that in less than 24 hours, Alexander Reed would discover that the woman he had considered without the right profile was now the owner of part of his empire, and this was just the beginning of her poetic justice. The night before the gala, as she adjusted the diamond necklace she would wear, Sophia reflected that in less than 24 hours, Alexander Reed would discover that the woman he had considered without the right profile was now the owner of part of his empire, and this was just the beginning of her poetic justice. The Metropolitan Museum of Art gleamed under strategically positioned lights, transforming its neoclassical facade into an almost ethereal vision in the New York night. The guest list for the Martinez Innovation Group's annual charity gala included the cream of American society: politicians, celebrities, technology titans, and billionaire philanthropists, all gathered under the pretext of raising funds for access to justice programs while actually seeking connections and influence. Alexander Reed, now 53, observed the crowd from atop the main staircase, a glass of 30-year-old whiskey in hand. The years had been kind to his appearance. A few strategic wrinkles only accentuated his air of authority, and the gray at his temples had spread evenly, giving him a distinguished look. His Tom Ford tuxedo fell impeccably across his broad shoulders. Superficially, he appeared to be the same confident magnate as always. Only his inner circle knew the truth. Reed Enterprises faced its worst crisis in 3 decades. The sale of the legal technology division to the enigmatic Martinez Innovation Group wasn't a strategic partnership as announced to the press, but a desperate measure to inject liquidity into the struggling company. "Alexander, congratulations on the transaction," Senator Williams greeted, approaching with a champagne flute. "Though I must admit I'm surprised. You always said you'd never sell parts of the Reed empire." "Strategic evolution, James," Alexander responded with a rehearsed smile. "Sometimes we need to divest something valuable to cultivate something even more valuable." "Well, you certainly chose your buyer well. Sophia Martinez is an innovation hurricane. Did you know Forbes ranked her as the 3rd most powerful businesswoman in America? And all while raising a prodigy daughter alone." Alexander nodded politely, feigning familiarity with details he actually knew nothing about. Throughout the acquisition process, he had delegated negotiations to his CFO and legal counsel, considering the matter beneath his personal attention. All he knew about Sophia Martinez was her name and reputation as an emerging force in the legal technology sector. A sudden commotion at the main entrance interrupted their conversation. Camera flashes intensified as photographers clustered together. A wave of murmurs swept through the hall, heads turning simultaneously toward the entrance. "Ah, the woman of the hour has arrived," commented the senator, rising on his tiptoes for a better view. Alexander turned casually, his gaze first finding a stunning young woman in a golden dress, a teenager with a presence that belied her apparent age. But it was the woman beside her who froze the blood in his veins. Sophia Martinez, not just any Sophia Martinez, but his Sophia, entered the hall as if she owned the place. The sapphire blue dress embraced her body with elegance, the diamond necklace sparkled under the lights, and her posture exuded an almost magnetic confidence. Her hair, once always pinned in severe buns during her days as an associate attorney, now fell in luxurious waves over her shoulders. But it was her eyes that truly paralyzed him. The same deep brown eyes that had once looked at him begging for understanding. Now they shone with absolute power and purpose. The glass slipped from Alexander's fingers, shattering on the marble floor. The sound drew momentary glances, but soon everyone returned their attention to Sophia, who advanced through the hall receiving greetings from all sides. Senators leaned in to kiss her cheek. CEOs of Fortune 500 companies waited patiently for a moment of her attention. "Alexander, are you all right?" asked the senator, noticing his sudden pallor. But Alexander couldn't respond. His eyes were fixed on the teenager beside Sophia. The girl threw her head back in laughter, and the movement revealed her eyes. Eyes Alexander saw every morning in the mirror, his own unique shade of amber gold with the same slightly almond shape. There could be no doubt. Who is the girl with her?" he finally managed to ask, his voice almost unrecognizable. "Isabella Martinez? The prodigy? Already at Columbia at 15. They say her IQ is above 160. An incredible story. Sophia raised her completely alone after the father abandoned them when he discovered the pregnancy. Transformed that tragedy into fuel to build an empire. Inspiring, isn't it?" Alexander felt the floor disappear beneath his feet. 15 years. The calculations formed instantly in his mind. The teenager had been born 9 months after that fateful morning in his apartment. The girl, no, his daughter, was there, a few meters away, a complete stranger who carried his blood and his eyes. As if sensing his gaze, Sophia finally turned her head in his direction. For a microsecond, their gazes met across the crowded hall. There was no surprise in her look, only a flash of cold, calculated recognition followed by a soft smile that didn't reach her eyes. She knew. Of course she knew. Alexander understood in that instant that nothing tonight was coincidence. During the next hour, Alexander observed from afar as Sophia navigated the room with the grace of an experienced politician and the authority of a queen. Isabella remained by her side, visibly impressing everyone she spoke with. He tried to approach them 3 times, but on each occasion Sophia subtly moved to another area of the hall, maintaining a calculated distance. It was only when the CEO of Goldstein and Partners Investment Bank approached Alexander that he began to understand the true magnitude of the situation. "Reed, your move was brilliant," commented Goldstein, swirling the ice in his glass. "Selling to Martinez before she could acquire your shares on the open market. You narrowly avoided a hostile takeover." "What are you talking about?" Alexander asked, his voice tense. "Come on, no need to be modest. Everyone on Wall Street knew Martinez had been secretly buying Reed shares for 2 years. 6 more months, and she would have had enough control to force a board vote. By proposing the sale of the legal technology division first, you at least got a good price." Alexander's face paled even more. He hadn't proposed the sale. The initial approach had come from the Martinez Innovation Group, presented as an unmissable opportunity by his CFO. The entire process had been meticulously orchestrated not as a lifeline for Reed Enterprises, but as part of a much larger plan. When the lights dimmed and Sophia took the stage for her speech, Alexander finally understood the perfect trap he had fallen into. "Good evening, everyone," she began, her clear, confident voice echoing through the silent hall. "Today we celebrate not just a business acquisition, but the realization of a vision that began in a small apartment in the Bronx 15 years ago, when I was an unemployed single mother, without support, but with a daughter to fight for." Her eyes swept the hall, momentarily pausing on Alexander. "When I founded the Martinez Innovation Group, I promised myself I would build a company that would transform access to justice for those who, like me once, were considered insufficient." The word hit Alexander like a physical blow, his own words, thrown back at him with surgical precision. "Our acquisition of Reed Enterprises' legal technology division marks the beginning of a new era, and I would like to invite to the stage someone who represents everything we fight for, my daughter, Isabella Martinez, who developed the legal assistance algorithm for immigrants that we will implement as the first project after this acquisition." Isabella took the stage to enthusiastic applause. Standing side by side, mother and daughter presented a powerful image of legacy and continuity. Alexander's eyes, the same eyes as Isabella's, shone in the teenager's face as she eloquently explained her innovative project. When the speech ended, the hall erupted in applause. Sophia and Isabella descended from the stage, immediately surrounded by admirers. Alexander finally gathered enough courage to approach, taking advantage of a momentary gap in the circle around them. "Sophia," he said, his voice almost inaudible under the crowd's buzz. She turned slowly, as if not surprised by his approach. Her eyes met his with a disturbing serenity. "Alexander Reed," she responded, her tone perfectly professional. "How nice to finally meet you in person after all these weeks of negotiation through our representatives." "Can we talk privately?" he asked, struggling to maintain composure. "I'm afraid my schedule is completely full tonight," she replied with a polite smile. "But perhaps we can schedule a meeting through our assistants next week to discuss the transition?" At that moment, Isabella turned to them, her curious eyes assessing Alexander. "Isabella, this is Alexander Reed, CEO of the company we just acquired," Sophia introduced her naturally. "Mr. Reed, my daughter, Isabella." Alexander found himself unable to speak as he looked directly at his daughter's face for the first time. The resemblance was undeniable. The shape of the face, the eyes, even the way she tilted her head slightly as she studied him. "Your contractual analysis algorithms had serious structural flaws," Isabella commented with surprising frankness. "I'm looking forward to leading the team that will completely restructure them." Before Alexander could respond, the governor of New York approached to congratulate Sophia, effectively ending the conversation. With a polite nod, Sophia and Isabella moved away, leaving Alexander petrified in the middle of the hall. While Sophia and Isabella received deafening applause after their speeches, Alexander finally understood the magnitude of his mistake. The woman he had discarded had become not just his equal, but his superior in every aspect, and the confrontation he had tried so hard to avoid that night was just beginning. While Sophia and Isabella received deafening applause after their speeches, Alexander finally understood the magnitude of his mistake. The woman he had discarded had become not just his equal, but his superior in every aspect, and the confrontation he had tried so hard to avoid that night was just beginning. As the crowd dispersed for the dinner portion of the evening, Alexander maneuvered through the sea of designer gowns and tuxedos with singular determination. The shattered whiskey glass from earlier had been swept away, but the internal fracturing of his composure remained. After 15 minutes of strategic positioning, he finally found Sophia in a relatively quiet alcove near the museum's Egyptian collection, momentarily separated from her constant entourage. "Sophia," he said, his voice steadier than he felt, "we need to talk." She turned to face him, her expression betraying neither surprise nor distress. The sapphire blue dress caught the light as she moved, a stark contrast to the ill-fitting department store clothes she'd worn when clearing out her desk at Blackwell & Stern 15 years earlier. "Mr. Reed," she replied, her tone coolly professional, "I don't believe we have anything personal to discuss. This is merely business." 15 years, he said, his voice dropping to ensure privacy. "And you planned all of this?" A slight smile played across Sophia's lips, reminiscent of the expressions he'd seen countless times during board meetings when someone had walked into a trap of their own making. "Not everything is about you, Alexander," she responded calmly. "Reed Enterprises was simply another strategic acquisition in our portfolio." She paused, her eyes studying him as if he were a curious specimen. "If you'd been paying attention to your analysts' reports over the past 3 years, you would have noticed your company was on a collision course with obsolescence." She took a sip of champagne. "The fact that you're here tonight is just an interesting coincidence." "She's my daughter," he said, his voice nearly breaking. "Biologically, yes," Sophia agreed. "Legally? Your name doesn't appear on any document. Paternity is more than DNA, Alexander. It's presence, sacrifice, sleepless nights, unconditional support, in all the ways that truly matter. Isabella, has no father. The clinical precision of her assessment cut deeper than any emotional outburst could have. This wasn't the wounded woman he might have expected. This was a calculated strategist who had outmaneuvered him on every level. "I made a mistake," he admitted, the words unfamiliar on his tongue. In boardrooms, Alexander Reed never acknowledged errors. He reframed them as strategic pivots. "A mistake," Sophia repeated, as if examining an unusual term. "Is that what you call abandoning a pregnant woman, ensuring her professional destruction, and discarding her as insufficient? Semantics matter in our profession, Alexander. What you made wasn't a mistake, it was a choice." A waiter approached with fresh champagne. Sophia accepted a glass with gracious thanks, the momentary interaction demonstrating how effortlessly she navigated between icy confrontation and warm sociability. "I want to know her," Alexander pressed once they were alone again. "Isabella. She's brilliant, clearly. Those eyes are the only thing you gave her," Sophia interrupted. "Everything else, her brilliance, her compassion, her resilience, those came from being raised by someone who valued her unconditionally." She checked her diamond watch. "Now, if you'll excuse me, the governor is waiting." With that, she glided away, leaving Alexander with the bitter realization that he no longer commanded the power to keep people in rooms against their will. His title, his wealth, his status, none of it impressed the woman who had once been desperate for his approval. Throughout the evening, he observed Sophia and Isabella from a distance, cataloging similarities and differences. The girl had his eyes, certainly, but her expressions, her mannerisms, the confident tilt of her chin, those were all Sophia. 15 years of moments he would never recover, of a relationship that could never be retroactively established. Near midnight, as the gala began winding down, Alexander made one final attempt to approach. This time he found Sophia alone on the museum's balcony, the Manhattan skyline creating a fitting backdrop for their confrontation. "You've done well for yourself," he said, standing beside her at the railing. "I didn't do it for myself," she replied without looking at him. "Initially, I did it for Isabella. Later, for all the others like us, people deemed unworthy by those with power. And for revenge," he added. Now she turned, her expression unreadable in the dim light. "Revenge would imply I still cared about your opinion, Alexander. I stopped caring years ago. Yet you orchestrated this entire acquisition. You could have purchased any company, but you specifically targeted mine." "I targeted an underperforming asset in a sector where we excel," she corrected. "The fact that it belonged to you was poetic, perhaps, but not the primary motivation." "You planned all this," he insisted, gesturing toward the gala inside. "This night, the reveal. You wanted me to see, to know." For the first time, a genuine smile crossed Sophia's face. "I won't deny there's satisfaction in coming full circle, but Alexander, the most liberating realization was discovering that success isn't about proving you wrong. It's about building something that matters regardless of your existence." The following morning, Alexander woke to the buzz of his phone vibrating relentlessly on his nightstand. 27 missed calls, 43 text messages, and countless email notifications. The first headline that greeted him confirmed his worst fears. "The Martinez Empire conquers Reed, the CEO who exceeded all expectations." But it was the subtitle that sent shockwaves through the corporate world. Sources confirm Isabella Martinez is the biological daughter of Alexander Reed. In his Park Avenue apartment, Alexander stared at his tablet screen, reading and rereading the detailed report that traced the entire story, from the 2-year relationship between a promising young lawyer and a powerful executive to the abandonment during pregnancy, culminating in Sophia's meteoric rise and the calculated acquisition of Reed's company. His phone wouldn't stop ringing. Messages from the board demanding explanations, calls from his public relations department begging for guidance on how to respond. Even his current girlfriend, a socialite 20 years his junior, wanting to know if it was true. Reed Enterprises, already financially fragile, now faced an unprecedented image crisis. The man who had built his personal brand as a family visionary with traditional values was exposed as someone who had abandoned his own daughter. At 10 in the morning, his assistant hurriedly entered his office. "Mr. Reed, the board has called an emergency meeting for 2 o'clock, and this arrived." He placed an envelope with the Martinez Innovation Group logo on the desk. Inside was a simple document. "Dear Mr. Reed, as per the terms of the acquisition finalized yesterday, this document serves as official notification that your presence will not be required during the previously discussed 90-day transition period. The Martinez Innovation Group has opted to waive your consultancy, as per our right established in Clause 27.3 of the acquisition agreement. Your contractual severance will be deposited in full this week, releasing you from any future obligation to the acquired division. Sincerely, Sofia Martinez, CEO and founder." The message was clear. She didn't need him, not even for the transition. It was an elegant and brutal reminder that he was completely dispensable. 2 hours later, his personal attorney sat across from him with a grave expression. "I'll be direct, Alexander. Legally, you have no rights over Isabella. There's no record of paternity, you never contributed financially, and the statute of limitations for establishing legal paternity expired years ago. Moreover," he cleared his throat uncomfortably, "attempting to establish any claim now after the public exposure would be seen as opportunism by the court." "There must be something we can do," Alexander insisted. "The best advice I can give is a private and humble approach. Perhaps a letter, a request to meet Isabella without making demands. But I must warn you, Sofia Martinez has built an impeccable reputation. She is respected, admired, and powerful. If this turns into a public battle, you don't stand a chance." The board meeting was exactly as Alexander had feared. After 3 hours of tense discussions, the verdict was unanimous. Alexander Reed would be temporarily removed from the CEO position to deal with personal matters while the company tried to control the damage. When Alexander finally managed another opportunity to approach Sofia again near the end of the night, his words came out rushed and desperate. "You planned all of this, didn't you? The acquisition tonight? All so I would discover about her." Sofia looked at him with an expression that mixed slight amusement and pity. "Alexander, not everything is about you," she calmly responded. "Reed Enterprises was just another strategic acquisition in our portfolio. If you had been paying attention to your analysts' reports over the past 3 years, you would have realized your company was on a collision course with obsolescence." She paused, her eyes studying him as if he were a curious specimen. "The fact that you're here tonight is just an interesting coincidence." "Alexander, not everything is about you," she calmly responded. "Reed Enterprises was just another strategic acquisition in our portfolio. If you had been paying attention to your analysts' reports over the past 3 years, you would have realized your company was on a collision course with obsolescence." She paused, her eyes studying him as if he were a curious specimen. "The fact that you're here tonight is just an interesting coincidence." With these words, she walked away, leaving Alexander alone with the crushing weight of 15 years of absence and the belated understanding of all he had lost. 3 weeks later, the Martinez Innovation Group announced the complete acquisition of Reed Enterprises, a hostile takeover facilitated by the sharp decline in share value following the scandal and Alexander's removal from leadership. In a final twist of cosmic irony, the company that had once been the symbol of his power would now be completely absorbed by the empire Sofia had built from scratch. Alexander watched the announcement from his half-empty apartment, whiskey in hand, as Sofia stood confidently behind a podium emblazoned with the Martinez logo. The television volume was too low to hear her words, but her posture told the story. Shoulders squared, chin lifted, the posture of a victor claiming territory long desired. "Reed Enterprises will be fully integrated into the Martinez innovation ecosystem," read the ticker scrolling across the bottom of the screen. Former CEO Alexander Reed unavailable for comment. He took another sip of whiskey, feeling the burn in his throat. The severance package he'd received after the board's unanimous decision to remove him had been generous by normal standards, $8 million, but represented a fraction of what he'd lost. His shares in Reed Enterprises, once valued at over $200 million, had plummeted to less than $40 million after the scandal broke. More painful was the erosion of his reputation. Overnight, he'd transformed from respected business leader to cautionary tale. His phone buzzed with a text from his publicist. Wall Street Journal requesting comment on the complete acquisition. Please advise. He ignored it, as he had dozens of similar messages over the past weeks. At the press conference announcing the acquisition, a reporter asked Sophia about Alexander Reed. Mr. Reed made personal and professional decisions based on what he valued at that moment, she responded diplomatically. The Martinez Innovation Group also makes decisions based on our values: innovation, inclusion, and access to justice. This acquisition isn't personal. It's simply the next logical step in our mission. The camera lingered on her face, capturing the perfect composure that revealed nothing of the personal triumph she must have felt. She had mastered the game Alexander had once claimed she couldn't even understand. The subtle theater of power. The performance of leadership that inspired both fear and devotion. That evening, alone with Isabella in their Tribeca apartment, away from cameras and public performance, Sophia finally allowed herself a moment of genuine reflection. They sat together on the oversized sectional sofa, Isabella curled against her mother's side as she had done since childhood, both still in their formal attire from the press conference. "Do you think he really cares about me? Or is he just trying to save face?" Isabella asked, her analytical mind still processing the events of recent weeks. Sophia considered the question carefully. "I think he genuinely regrets his choices now, but regret isn't the same as love or commitment. People like Alexander see relationships as transactions, what they can gain versus what they need to invest. And you, Mom? This whole acquisition? Was it revenge?" Isabella's piercing gaze, so like Alexander's in color but so different in its depth of empathy, searched Sophia's face. Sophia smiled, stroking her daughter's hair. "In the beginning, perhaps I dreamed of something like this as revenge. But somewhere along the years, I realized that true freedom comes from building something meaningful, not from destroying what someone else valued." "But you did destroy his company," Isabella observed with an ironic smile. "No, darling. Reed Enterprises was self-destructing for years with outdated business decisions and lack of innovation. We merely accelerated the inevitable and, in the process, will save thousands of jobs and transform the technology for a better purpose." Sophia paused. The real triumph wasn't acquiring his company, but building a life so complete that when we finally met again, I felt absolutely nothing. No anger, no resentment, no that old need for approval. Meanwhile, in his apartment, Alexander scrolled through his phone's photo gallery, pausing on an image from a technology conference 5 years earlier. He stood center stage, confident and commanding, the Reed Enterprises logo projected behind him. The world had seemed so orderly then, so predictable. Success had felt like his birthright rather than something earned or maintained. Now that same certainty seemed like arrogance. How had he failed to notice Sophia's steady acquisition of Reed shares over the past 2 years? How had his executives missed the warning signs of Martinez Innovation's strategic positioning? The answers were uncomfortable but clear. He had been too focused on appearances, on maintaining the narrative of success, rather than the substance of it. The following morning, Alexander Reed watched the television announcement of the complete restructuring of the former Reed Enterprises. The new name would be incorporated into the Martinez Group, and Isabella would lead the technology innovation team as junior director, her first official role in her mother's company. Moving to the window of his apartment, boxes packed for his move to a smaller condominium, his personal fortune drastically reduced after the shares collapsed. Alexander realized the magnitude of his loss. Not just the business empire that had defined his identity for decades, but the family he could have had, an extraordinary daughter and a remarkable woman he had dismissed as insufficient. The irony was that, in the end, he had proven himself insufficient, not in resources or social status, but in vision, compassion, and understanding of what truly mattered. Across town, Sofia Martinez concluded her presentation to global investors, with Isabella at her side learning every aspect of the business. As they left the stage to enthusiastic applause, mother and daughter shared a look of complicity and mutual pride, the true definition of success that no corporate acquisition or fortune could ever surpass. 3 days later, Alexander opened his mailbox to find an envelope with the Martinez Innovation logo. Inside was a handwritten note from Isabella. "Mr. Reed, after consideration, I would be willing to meet again in 6 months to continue our conversation. This is not a promise of relationship, merely an openness to additional data collection. Isabella Martinez." The formal language couldn't mask what it was: a small opening, a potential bridge across 15 years of absence. Not forgiveness, not acceptance, but possibility. It was more than he deserved and less than he wanted, but it was something. For the first time since the gala night, Alexander felt a flicker of hope. Not for restored power or reclaimed status, but for something he had never properly valued: connection. "Ready to change the world?" Sophia asked her daughter as they entered the limousine after finalizing the details of the Reed acquisition. "I always have been," Isabella replied with a smile. "I learned from the best." And so, the empire that had begun in a small apartment in the Bronx, built by a mother determined to create a better world for her daughter, continued its expansion, no longer motivated by ghosts of the past, but by the unlimited promise of the future. If you enjoyed today's video, I'm sure you'll love the next one. Don't waste time. Just click on the screen